This is the Bitcoin 1 month overview reading for the month of February 2024. It's currently December 27th, 2023, 7:28 p.m. Eastern Time. Bitcoin at the time of this reading is currently $43,629.96. That's USD. And the shuffle video for the February Bitcoin reading was created on December 5th, 2023 at 3:48 p.m. Eastern Time. This video here in the left corner. So the overall theme and behavior for the month of February is a notable decline on like a year-to-date kind of scale to revisit a support level that we recently met once before. It's an important support level, probably on like a year-to-date scale as well. It's crossed with a U-shaped dip that forms near the intersection of two perpendicular diagonal trend lines. So when you see the universe card, usually what you have is like two peaks, and then in between those peaks, there's like this trough. So you have a low and two highs, basically. And I think when you have a combination like this, it's going to be a pretty mixed month, which goes pretty well with all of the other February readings that I've looked at thus far. They're pretty mixed back and forth between highs. The Hermit card, though, it indicates that we'll most likely see the low of the month more than once. It's either that, or we're revisiting the low, or we're revisiting the low from the prior month. But I think it's going to be, actually, I think it's probably both. Behavior around the highest high for the month or highest highs for the month. A notable rally along a diagonal trend line on a multi-day scale, breaking through horizontal resistance on a one-month chart scale to meet a second resistance, and then it pulls back to somewhere between those two price levels. That's the behavior around the high, forming the high, and behavior around the low or lowest low or lowest lows. A notable decline on a multi-day scale that increases with momentum moving forward into the low. Before we go any further, I want to make sure everybody's aware the whole purpose of the channel is to transmute some of the competitive energy of the stock market into goodwill. We do that by following the rule of karma for the channel. That's the unwritten agreement between the universe and anybody utilizing this information for gain. And the rule of karma is as follows: 5% of the profits from every profitable trade using this information should be donated forward to one of these charities right here. 5% of the profit should be donated back to the channel. One of these links right here. It helps support the channel. It's a good way to say thank you. It leaves you with 90% of the money. Make sure to spend that money out of love. As long as you follow those rules, the universe considers you an angel investor of the channel. It's going to send it back to you tenfold for following through on the rule of karma. Blessings to all my angel investors. Not to mention you end up on the Angel Investor Discord channel, which went live over Christmas. Let's get back into it. When looking at the timing of a 1 month reading, utilizing SO-meta analysis anyways, you want to make sure that you understand each one of these cards going left to right horizontally. It represents about 1 day of time, and you can see the dates of the month are numbered above the cards. But what's important to know is that not each card's energy is going to line up perfectly with 24 hours of time. So you have to give it plus or minus a day here or there of wiggle room in some cases. In some cases, you won't need to do that at all, in many cases. But there are some cases where you'll need to give it plus or minus a day of wiggle room. In like really bad cases where it's like a really bad reading, you'll see plus or minus 2 days. That doesn't happen that often, but I consider that to be a bad reading. So with that said, what's most important to do is pay attention to the sequence of chart events as predicted. That will remain accurate even when we're plus or minus a day here or there. It's really important to understand that. We have a prominent peak on a 1 month chart. It forms that overbought territory, and we sell off through multiple support levels. There is an important range on a multi-day scale that's highlighted there on the second. It looks like it's to the upper end, so we probably see the high on the first and or on the second, but we're bound by the upper end of a range. It looks like the second is a pretty mixed day, actually, and there's a trade opportunity in there. I'll talk about in more detail in the paid version. On the third, we have a pop and drop. On the fourth, a notable decline to and through support to meet a second support, and we rotate sideways along that support. There's an important support level on a 1 year chart scale minimum highlighted around the high here on the 5th. And this will be another prominent high on a 1 month chart. There's also a trade opportunity early in the morning at that peak, and then it's actually pretty mixed there. It's pretty mixed there. We have a failed attempt to break through resistance, and then we end up back at support. And then the following day on the 6th, we have a notable rally on a multi-day scale that offers an opportunity. I'll talk about in more detail in the paid version. There's a brief peak on the 7th, or on the cusp of the 6th, 7th, that's easily missed, followed by a decline through multiple support levels into a trough at in the early part of the day. And then it looks like there's a really big rally there's a really notable rally out of that trough early in the morning on the 7th, and a fast sudden move higher into the 8th, where we might see a peak again. Towards the end of the day on the 8th, we have a decline into support on the 9th. We rotate sideways on the 9th. There's a sharp drop into a trough towards the end of the day on the 9th, into a prominent trough for the month, and then we may see another prominent trough on the 10th, where it's kind of like a combo, and it's that trough there towards the end of the day on the 9th into the 10th. But out of that trough, there's a big move higher, pushing the upper end of a range higher, and then we have a breakout on a multi-day scale there on the 11th to another prominent peak around the cusp of the 11th, 12th. The rally's halted there on the 12th by a decline through key support on a multi-day scale. There's a lot of price change on the 13th, and an important support level there on the cusp of the 12th, 13th. Important support level on a year-to-date scale. It's highlighted there on the 13th, and probably another support level that's important on a year-to-date scale on the 14th. I don't think it's the same support level, so there's a lot of trade opportunity around the 13th, 14th. I'm going to get into in the paid version. Before we go any further, let's take a look at December and see how we're doing. It's very end of December, so it's almost a full reading we can take a look at. So we had a high and a low here around the 1st, 2nd. So we nailed a low, we nailed a high because we declined back down, but we went higher still into the 8th, nailed that. We have that as a high there. And then on the 13th, we have another prominent peak. That's the 14th, 13th, 14th, so we pretty much nailed that. In between, there's a couple troughs around the 10th, 11th, around the 12th, 13th, and you can see that we pretty much nailed as well. We weren't sure about the 19th, 20th, if there was going to be a high there, and it looks like it ended up being a high there. And then we came into trough again. I had these as lowest lows. Wasn't a lowest low, but it did end up being pretty notable. And then back into highs, or highest highs by the 27th. So a little bit off there. but really close, really close. And on most of the December readings, this last week was really difficult to read in a lot of cases, just a lot of haywire energy. So I'd say this is a pretty decent reading. It's not my best, but it's definitely not my worst. It's pretty solid. As far as trades, you could have cashed out at this on the 8th here at this high, as indicated. You could have cashed out of a long position. All right, so on the 19th, there was a trade opportunity in the midst of a notable move higher, offering opportunity to open up a short position, and that worked out pretty well. A little bit off on these lows here. We did have a prominent peak on the 22nd, so we got that part right, but we also had a prominent trough. It got really crazy over here, so it's pretty hard to read. I say the first 3 parts of this are really accurate. Not my best reading, but considering that it was done, considering the December reading was created on October 8th, 2023, bang, that's really good. Nobody could even come close to that, my friends. All right, so with that said, so definitely a lot of money that can be made over here. There's 2 day trade opportunities on the 13th, 14th, and also swing trade opportunities, but a lot of money cash out opportunity, at least one, probably 2 cash out opportunities there. On the 15th, we have a notable fake out on a multi-day scale. This will stand out amongst other kind of like tricky chart behavior. It'll be an intentional fake out, shake out of some kind, designed to induce like impulsive behavior. And it'll be to the downside. We established support with sideways rotation on the 16th, followed by a big move higher, and then more sideways rotation at a higher price level. And then on the 17th, we have a prominent move higher through resistance. We stay above it briefly, and then we break back down through that same price level with a full retracement. And that'll probably show us another prominent peak on a 1-month scale. A unicursal hexagram off of that peak, so we should see a peak or probably off of that peak after multiple failed attempts to break through key resistance there between the 17th, 18th, and there should be this sharp drop into a trough early in the day on the 18th. That decline might continue into the 19th. Either that or there's a move higher between the 18th and the 19th, 2 multiple failed attempts to break through key resistance, and then that's followed by a decline through multiple support levels on the 19th. A sideways rotation on the 20th with a fast move higher marking the end of that sideways rotation. Actually, that sideways rotation probably starts around the 19th. There's a low around there. So there's a prominent peak there around the 17th, and 17th, 18th, probably the 17th, and then there's a prominent trough around the 18th, 19th, 20th. Maybe even the 22nd is very likely a low again. There's a prominent peak midday on the 20th, and then on the 21st, we successfully turned resistance into new support, followed by a decline into a prominent low midday on the 22nd, and then a big move higher out of that low to a prominent peak on the 23rd, and a sharp drop off of that peak to another prominent trough. A bunch of cross-reading congruencies here at the end of the month. I'm going to talk about in more detail in the paid version, how that fits into the bigger picture. There's a crest on the 24th that we sell off down to and through support, and then we do a U-shaped reversal below that support, come back and reuse it as support. So that 23rd, rather than it just being a sharp drop, I think that's probably price swings, bearish price swings. Oh wow, and that's a prominent peak there, mid to early in the day on the 24th. But we end up in like a higher price level on the 24th, and then we decline from there pretty notably, especially around the cusp of the 24th, 25th, into a prominent trough on the 25th, and then a big move higher around the end of the 25th or on the 26th, out of a decline from the bottom of a range all the way to the top of a range. That move higher probably continues. There's a peak towards the end of the day on the 26th. Mixed behavior back and forth. Actually, I think the prominent move higher from the bottom of range to the top of range is in the morning on the 26th. Mixed behavior back and forth through the same price level there around the 26th, and we see that peak twice, early in the day on the 26th, and then on the cusp of the 26th, 27th. That's followed by a significant move higher into even higher price levels there on the 28th, reaching for a distant resistance, and then another big move higher on the 29th to another prominent peak. An unexpected move higher is the highlight in March. But we're going to talk about that. There's also seems to be a pretty significant decline after this peak here at the end of the month. So we're going to talk about that in more detail in the paid version. And that's Bitcoin for February. Let me know what you think by hitting that like button. As always, make sure to follow that rule of karma. You know where to go. You know what to do. Blessings to all my angel investors. I'll see you guys on the next one. Stay tuned if you got the paid version. All right, guys. So on the multi-year chart, we're seeing here, 2023 is that rally increasing with the momentum moving forward in time after this like erratic behavior back and forth through the same price level here in 2022. Right? Turns into a rally increasing with momentum in 2023. There's a high in 2023, 2024. But I think probably what we see is this rally. See, this orange here indicates a correlation to the Princess of Wands, right? So there's an opportunity to take profits here in the midst of this rally increasing with momentum and open up a short position, right? We've got this decline in 2024, but it ends in 2024 with a big move higher, taking us to a peak around the cusp of at maybe the end of 2024 or the cusp of 2024, 2025. Somewhere in 2024, we probably hit like 60K. Could be April. If it's not April, it could be July, August. If it's not there, then very strong possibility of October, November. But in any case, from the standpoint of cross-reading congruencies, we're a little bit ahead in the sequence of events on the 1 year, right? So like in the January reading, we're picking up on some pretty strong cross-reading congruencies between the February cluster of the 1 year, right? And now we're seeing strong cross-reading congruencies to March cluster stuff in the February. So as far as sequence of events, we're kind of like in this February-March area. I think what we have here is a highest high thus far here on the highest high thus far here on the first or the second, and then a highest high here on the 5th, 6th. We go into a trough, and then probably a lowest low thus far here on the 9th, 10th, and then maybe again on the 12th, but more likely on the 9th, 10th. Here on the 10th, 11th, we have a breakout where we break through the price levels of the high here from the 5th, 6th, and go to higher price levels here around the 11th, 12th. Pretty big move to the downside, probably revisiting a trough in there here around the 13th, and then another big move back to the highs that we see on the 11th, 12th here on the 14th. Most likely revisit those highs again here on the 16th, 17th, and then we have this sharp drop into lows. Very, very strong possibility of a lowest low here on the 22nd and or a lower one here on the 25th, 26th. If I'm wrong about that, then the lowest low is here on the 18th, but I think it's going to be probably twice here between the 22nd and the 26th. And then between that low at the end, the 25th, 26th low, there's a big move from the bottom of a range to the top of a range. I think it's probably more than a one-day move to reach the upper end of that range. But at some point around the 26th, 27th, we probably break through that range and go to even higher highs at the very end of the month here for like the highest high of the month, probably at the end of the month, which is pretty unusual considering it's overall a bearish theme card, but it's pretty mixed, right? And what we've got is like this high here, this drop, and then back to this highs here. And it's also pretty mixed. That March behavior is back and forth, kind of mixed behavior with the big move mid-month. There's probably a pretty sharp move off of this trough here to the upside here on the 7th. As far as trades, so the lows around February, March are a pretty significant opportunity to open up a long position for this high that we have here in April. And I would definitely be picking up a long position here around the 25th in the midst of that decline there. I'd probably be adding to like a partial that I opened up on the 22nd. Might even add a little bit, like open a partial long position here on the 18th in the midst of a sharp drop. But definitely the 22nd, and I'd probably add to it there on the 25th. And that's for like a long-term play. So at a peak here early in the day on the 5th, I'd open up a partial short. If we go higher on the 6th, I'd add to that short. And I'd be looking for an exit around the morning of the 7th after a brief peak that's easily missed and a decline through multiple supports. If I'm wrong about closing the short there, which I don't think I am, but if that doesn't work out, or like if you miss it or something, there's probably another opportunity here, but it's risky. I don't know if I'd wait till the 9th. I'd probably close out, and then I'd look to get involved in the trades over here where we have this breakout through the highs of the 5th, 6th. We have this breakout around the 11th, 12th. So I'd be looking for opportunities when we're rotating sideways on the 9th to open up along around lows. Maybe add to it here before a notable breakout, and then in the midst of a notable breakout to a highest high, there on the 11th, 12th, I'd close those long positions. I'd open up a short position and close that short position when we revisit lowest lows or see an even lower low here around the 12th, 13th. And then when I close those shorts, I would open up a long to close the following day when we revisit the highs from the 11th, 12th. Remember, this is plus or minus a day, but what you're looking for are those overall, like, you're looking for for entry and exit here around those trades around the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th. You're looking for an entry and an exit around an important support on like a one-year chart scale. It's two separate price levels that are both acting as support at some point. So even near the high, it'll act as support momentarily. If we see a notable decline on the 15th, that's a good opportunity to open up a long position for a quick overnight trade. We'll see sideways rotation on a one-day chart on the 15th with a sharp drop that stands up in that period of sideways rotation, and we'll revisit a support level that was recently a past opportunity. In that, I would utilize that as an opportunity to open up a long position and close it the following day in the midst of a notable rally higher on both a one-month chart and a one-day chart. The high on the one-day chart there on the 16th will be in a period of volatility, and then when we break through key resistance momentarily on the 17th, I'd open up a short. Maybe I'd open up a partial short on the 16th when we turn resistance into new support at a higher price level. And then I'd add to it if we break through key resistance here on the 17th before breaking back down. And I'd look to close out of that short there in the midst of that sharp decline. If I'm wrong about that, could close it here on the 22nd. You might have opportunity to add to it on the 20th. This is another place you could do a short is on the 20th at a prominent peak here early in the day. Open up a short, close that short midday on the 22nd before a big move higher. It'll be a big move higher even in the face of seemingly significantly negative chart behavior. And there's also a very good chance that the price level as far as the lows here around the 22nd through the 25th, they're very, very likely the same lows here because we're revisiting lows, right? You know, that's the Hermit card. It's either that or it's that we're revisiting lows from January, February, or both. And as far as Bitcoin's overall performance throughout the month of February in comparison to the S&P 500, it's roughly the same performance as the S&P 500 in February. And that's Bitcoin for February 2024. Thank you so much for supporting the channel with the paid version. You know what to do. You know where to go. Blessings to all my angel investors. I'll see you guys on the next one.